Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Terry Toomey. I'm the Director of Athletics and William B. R.C. George Roberts Fellow for CMS Athletics. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the 2017 Claremont Mudd Scripps Hall of Fame induction ceremonies. Thank you for joining us this evening. Tonight is my great pleasure to honor some of the true gems of our CMS history, those who've shown tremendous leadership, not only athletically, but in our global community. Their achievements as honorees have served as the foundation for many of the things that we still do today here at CMS. Their leadership is incredible. And with that, I think I'd also like to honor some other leaders that we may have here with us this evening. I'd like to begin by having those honorees that we're going to be honoring tonight, please stand so everyone can see you. I'd like to also have our past Hall of Fame members please stand if you're in attendance. I'm not sure if he's here or not, but as we speak of leadership, I'd like to ask also our president of CMC, Hiram Chodosh, if you're here this evening. Oh, there he is. An athletic director is nothing without amazing coaches. I'd also like to ask my CMS coaches to please stand. And how about our Hall of Fame committee members? If you're in attendance, please stand. Any Hall of Fame committee members here? Thank you. And last but not least, I think it's very important, if you know anything about our history here at CMC, I think this would be a wonderful time to also ask our veterans to please stand if you're in attendance. Thank you so much. All right, let's get this show on the road. As we go ahead and start our program, what I'd like to do is begin with some special recognitions that we're going to perform here before we get to our honorees. The Stag swimming and diving program was one of the tops of the SCIAC conference in the 1960s. With its leadership from Dez Farnady, in its third season, the 1966 team had an amazing run. In the 1965 and 66 airs concluded the swimming copy with like this: Coach Farnady is one of the most enviable, and is in one of the most enviable positions imaginable. His entire crew of swimmers, there is nary a senior on the team. The 1967 season should prove to be quite interesting. It was one of the one times a newspaper was correct. The returning experience of the Stags, coupled with the new talent of freshmen, overcame the losses of Scott Campbell to mid-year graduation, true CMC fashion, and headed to the NAIA championships in Buffalo with high hopes of moving to finish their year strong. And that they did. On the first day of competition, they were in 7th place. In true form, on the second day of competition, we moved from 7th to 3rd place. And on the last day of competition, our Stags earned its first national championship for Claremont Mud Scripts athletic program. While we continue to work on our next title, no pressure, current athletes who are in there. That's a really tough one to follow. I apologize for you guys. What we'd like to do is we are very blessed to have team members here with us this evening. I think we have somewhere in the area of 9 team members here that we'd like to bring up and honor from that 1967 championship team. This celebration will be the 50th year anniversary of that victory and our first national title. So to honor them, we'd like to present some crystal monuments that are given out by our current Stag and Athena swimmers. Please give them a round of applause. So I'd like to honor, if you can, please come up and join us. I'd like to begin with Mr. Jeff Bryson. Jeff, are you with us? Next, I'd like to bring up NAIA All-American Joe Bush. Also with us this evening is Mr. Scott Campbell. Next, I'd like to honor Mr. Russell Chung. Also, I'd like to bring up another All-American and, more importantly, parent of an 04 grad, Carl Graber. I'd also like to bring up Chip Hardinge, 1967 NAIA All-American and captain of the team. Next, I'd like to bring up Mr. John Johnson. Our next honoree would be Mr. Stuart Mims. And finally, in honoring this national championship team, I'd like to bring up All-American Steve Ryder. Thank you. Oh, good. Once again, thank you, 1967 team. It's an honor to be around such visionary people and who led us the way. Speaking of visionary leadership, we are very blessed to have a visionary leader of our own, and it's my honor to introduce him to you this evening, our very own president of CMC, Hiram Chodosh.
Thank you, Terry, and thank you, Mike, for all you've done to lead this amazing program. I would like to make just a couple of broad reflections tonight and then get out of the way between you and dinner. I think it's important to reflect on the broader inspiration of what we're doing here tonight. And I want you each to know how much you have inspired this program. Earlier today, we were celebrating the 1970 SCIAC winning football team as they honored the Roberts Pavilion with a naming ceremony for the football coach's office. And I remarked that when I first learned of the plans for Roberts Pavilion, I said, we finally will have a facility that matches the excellence of our program. And I want all of the honorees and all of you who have assisted and mentored and coached the honorees here tonight to understand the foundation that you built in order to spin this virtuous cycle that we call our CMS athletic program. When Roberts started to emerge from the ground, it was clear to me that our program should be the go-to program for the absolute best scholar, leader, athlete in the country. There really is no other place in the country that can compete with the overall leadership experience that we can provide our students. And I want you each to know how grateful we all are for your individual and collective contributions to that legacy. But I want to make a broader comment tonight. And I want you all to reflect with me on how meaningful this set of experiences is in the broader context. When you think about the things that our country needs, especially on Veterans Day, I think you will all agree that there are at least a few things that are critical to improving and sustaining our society. First, the ability to deal with adversity, the grit, the resilience to overcome challenges. And the athletic experience provides a wonderful setting in which to learn how to do just that. I mean, how many of you have applied the kinds of lessons that you've learned on the field or in the pool or on the court to the current environments in which you lead and work and live? Second, it's a divided society, an increasingly polarized society, and we need teamwork in the broadest sense. That is, the special skills that allow us to understand one another and to collaborate toward a common objective. And third, and especially on Veterans Day, we need service. We need people who can look at sacrificing their own interests for the greater interests of the team. And so when we celebrate our honored athletes tonight and our very distinguished national championship teams, we need to celebrate them, but we also need to listen and absorb the inspiration that they give us here at the college to lead by example, to overcome our own adversities, to work and collaborate and to transcend all divisions that stand in our way, and of course, yes, to serve and to serve others well. So I want to thank you each for your role, for your legacy, and for your example here tonight. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for that, President Chodosh. As tradition holds, I ask that you bow your heads with me now as I lead us in the invocation. Let us pray. Lord, we gather this evening in gratitude of the gifts you have provided. We are thankful for and celebrate sportsmanship, competing with excellence in the team experience. We are thankful for our families, our teammates, our coaches, and all those who support us. We are thankful for the memories we have made through sports and the lasting impact it has made on our lives. Let this time of celebration be honoring to you as we ask your blessing upon all who are gathered and the meal set in front of us. It is in your holy name we pray, Lord. Amen. Thank you. I believe it's time for dinner now.
Good evening, everyone. I hate to kill good conversation, but it's that time. So I hope you've enjoyed your dinner and conversations we've been going through here. It is time to begin our celebration, and the celebration of our CMS Alumni Athletic Association Hall of Fame class of 2017. Yeah, who knew, right? So I'm Mike Sutton, and I have the pleasure of knowing most of you already, but you might know that I'm a CMC alum from the class of 76. And those of you that know me, I know that I've also worn a few hats around here since I returned in 1979. I was a swim and water polo coach for a while. I was the director of athletics. And a year and a half ago, I was given the opportunity for a new chapter in my CMS life. And my current responsibility is developing an advancement program to serve athletics. So it's been a real pleasure to stretch myself in this way, to support Terry Toomey as our 5th director of athletics, and to begin to connect our many alumni athlete networks to support our colleges in the efforts to deliver on the promise that Hiram spoke of earlier, that combining excellent athletics and educational experiences to make this place the destination for the very best scholar leader athletes, as he says there. So I realized too, one thing you saw as we did our presentation of the 67 team, you saw a good group of 8 of our current CMS swimming athletes, Stags and Athenas here. We have a large group of current CMS athletes in the room tonight, and I would love to take just a minute to, again, connecting our history with our current. Would all of you that are our current Stags and Athenas please rise and let us recognize you for a minute. We are really glad to have you here tonight and to indulge us in our reminiscing on how great we were. And as you are making those stories now, and so your time will come to have these times here as we go. I got to tell you, I'm honored and not a little bit intimidated standing in front of you all tonight because I'm the replacement Mike. Okay, as we know, I'm standing in for Mike Haas, class of 79, who has he's actually in Texas with our volleyball team tonight, and I think the word's out, right? We won. We are in the finals of the West Region Championships tonight, so yay. Terry, you flying out tonight? You got a flight? You got a red eye? Yeah. On your way? Nice. Great. That's great. If they win that game, then they move on to the National Championship weekend, which we have done once before, but this is a really special group of women, and really proud of them. They've progressed well as the season has gone on. Anyhow, like I said, replacement Mike. That's who you get tonight. Mike has done such a nice job of segueing between our presenters and connecting the dots between our inductees. Mike has been the ultimate servant to CMS athletics. He too has worn many hats around here since he entered CMC in 75, and his passion is us. But his real love is volleyball and basketball. And so he will do anything to be present to those teams, and you will see him on the bench of every game, home and away, and he's actually making sure that they get the stats right. So anyway, we miss Michael tonight. I know he wishes he could be 2 places at once, but that's not happening, and this evening. So like I said, you're getting other Mike, and I'll do my best to fill in here and honor our event as we move forward through these presentations. It reminds me that we are missing some others of our CMS family as well. We lost our founding director of athletics before the last Hall of Fame gathering last year. And since then, Nancy Arce has also passed. So along with our first family of CMS athletics, several other founders of our program, people who have impacted us significantly in many of us who are here tonight who were impacted significantly. John Zinda, David Wells, Grail Howlett, many others. Three members of our 67 National Championship swim team. And a fourth, I understand, that we may have lost there. Several of our Hall of Fame members in that. I know there are a very good number of us in attendance tonight who recently celebrated the life and the passing of Kurt Hawker in class of '88. And I trust that those people that we miss are with us in spirit, and I encourage us to continue to celebrate their lives and their contributions to ours. So this Hall of Fame event was aptly dubbed the Feel Good Night of the Year. That's a quote by Dean of Faculty Greg Hess. And annually, the guests at our dinner learn more of the history of our athletic program as we celebrate the personalities and their contributions and the contributions of the legends of CMS athletics. The warmth of the shared memories of wonderful times and experiences come across again and again. And we were reminded that while there are many visible changes to the campus and our teams, excuse me, the underlying principles on which the program was founded are still very evident today. The students who come to Claremont are very much the same at the core as the generations preceding them. They are high achievers, they are goal-oriented and competitive, and for the most part, coachable. But they do expect to be good at whatever they are doing, and they bring that youthful energy and enthusiasm that enlivens our teams, our programs, and our campuses. So we're really glad to have some of you with us tonight as we go through here. But being involved with this crowd for the last 40 years has been a great gift. It has kept me young and inspired. And I'll tell you, it does wear me out at times and has worn me out at times. But I know that we were always looking forward and up. What can we do next? It's been a great gift with CMS athletics. So those personalities, talents, and traditions continue, and they are reinforced by the CMS athletic experience through our leadership, our coaches, and our support staff. And I congratulate and commend them for their commitments and the excellence that they show and for the opportunities that they provide to our current CMS student athletes and the colleges. Congratulations to you all. So a wiser person than me once advised that the best hosts are funny and brief. And if you're not very funny, then you should be very brief. So since my funny is usually unintended, let's just get on with the show here as we go. So tonight we will meet alumni who have helped develop and build on the traditions established at our founding. The 5 inductees tonight played significant roles in our success story. Each inductee will be presented by a person they feel can tell their story, and then our inductees can respond or rebut. And I look forward to enjoying the good feelings in the telling of our history tonight. So our first inductee is Diane Noonan Eichler, Scripps, class of 1990. I had the pleasure of watching Diane play and score some goals, and while I was still in my coaching days as we go here. But Diane was a key player on our early Athena soccer teams here. So she's going to be presented tonight by her coach, Bruce Myrie. Bruce coached here for 7 years. He coached our Athenas for 7 seasons during our formative years. He had some actually pretty good talent to work with as he's now inducting his 4th Hall of Famer. And so I think that has a lot to do with why Bruce's teams won 75% of their conference games. And 2 of every 3 games they played, they won. And the ones they didn't win, they were 13 of those were ties, right? So it's soccer. Anyway. But the fact is, we were in the hunt for the title each year. And we won 2 championships and had 7 runner-up finishes. So I'd like to welcome Bruce Myrie to the podium here to present Diane Noonan Eichler.
Greetings, everybody. Good evening. It is an honor for me to be here on behalf of Diane, and thank you very much for asking me to introduce you tonight. As I said, it's truly an honor. I was hired to coach CMS women's soccer in 1986, and I was 26 years old. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I was ready for the challenge, and it was a great 7 years for me. And as I drive here, and this is my fourth time, as Mike had said. Each time the campuses are bigger, more beautiful. They've grown. The last time I came, I brought my son, who was, I think, 8. I would have brought him tonight, but he was at a birthday party. And my son has always, for some reason, wanted to go to UCLA. But as we drove up, he said, "Dad, I want to go to CMS," or Claremont McKenna. And I certainly don't blame him. So, as I said, lots of great memories about my time here. And Diane had a lot to do with that. I'd like to begin with giving you some particulars about her stellar career. A graduate of Scripps College in 1990, she was a 3-time All-SCIAC selection and a 4-year team member for the Athenas. As a senior in 1989, Diane scored 19 goals. Yeah, 19 goals, guys. That's not easy to do. And earned, deservedly so, team MVP honors. Yeah. Those 19 goals helped her become the second leading goal scorer in CMS women's soccer history. Yeah. And with Diane playing a major part, the Athenas won 2 SCIAC championships and had a pair of second-place finishes during her career. People who know and love soccer will tell you that a striker is the hardest position to fill. Well, the coaching gods certainly smiled down on me when I came on board to turn around a young, struggling program and found out I had inherited a striker named Diane Noonan. In fact, it may have been Diane herself who told me, announced to me, that she would be the big scoring threat for the Athenas. She did. I discovered very quickly that Diane was bold, strong-willed, and full of confidence. In other words, all the attributes you want from a striker. Diane was a naturally gifted player who was fearless on the soccer field. And I knew instantly that I could build a winning team around her and her fellow Hall of Fame teammates, Wendy Cole and Robin Hollingshead. Now, one of the things about coaching is you never really know what's going to happen in any given game, contest. You can't have the best team, you can have the best team and the most dedicated players, but from game to game, things are pretty unpredictable. Well, in the case of Diane, and especially with attention to her senior year, one thing became very predictable. Diane would score goals. And did I mention earlier she scored 19 goals her senior year? 19. And that number is even more remarkable when you consider she had battled back from major knee surgery prior to her final season as an Athena. I knew I could count on getting at least one goal from her every time we took the field. And she knew her job was to score, and she did. And that's why she's here tonight. Now, I'm not going to kid you. What made her so dynamic on game day could sometimes make her difficult to coach the rest of the time. But I was a pretty easygoing guy and, embraced different personalities, so it was all good, as they say. Yes, she was a feisty one and brash, opinionated, and once again, let me say, strong-willed. But I loved it. I did. I loved it. I embraced her personality, and frankly, I knew it's what made her so successful on the soccer field. Was she a big fan of practice? No. No, she wasn't. She would tell me she was so competitive that she just wasn't willing to do to her teammates, maybe one or two she might have been, what she would do to her opponents on game day. Or at least that's the excuse she used to give me. Well, anyways, you're not here to listen to me. So without further delay, please join me in welcoming Diane Noonan Eichler.
Maybe I didn't necessarily expect that. Okay, let me get situated. I've been waiting 30 years. No, just joking. The best speech is a brief one, right? So I've got my phone set here for 10 minutes, so let's go. First, thank you to AD Terry Toomey and the nominating committee for this honor. I am indeed humbled. When I told my husband of 25 years that I was being inducted, his reaction was, and I quote you, "So, it really hasn't been hype all these years." So thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the third-party credibility and the lifelong bragging rights. Like right there, that is awesome. So Coach, I have to figure out how to work this first. So Coach, is that working? Thank you for introducing me. I know it's not so cute. I'll bet when you took over our team in 1987, you never imagined that 4 of us would end up as Hall of Famers. I'll also bet you're pretty surprised that none of us were ever convicted of a felony. And the word is convicted because there were certainly a lot of shenanigans going on that team. To this day, oops, is it working? Sorry. Oh, my pictures are like, we didn't have selfies and digital stuff, so they might be a little bit blurry. To this day, our little band of soccer sisters remains the only one in the history of the program to win back-to-back SCIAC championships. And let's all be honest here, when Coach took over, we weren't exactly coachable, as they say. And some might say, as he has already said tonight, that I might have been a little bit stubborn. Fortunately, as a fully actualized adult, I have overcome that lovely character trait. But don't ask that table right there any more detail. But I'm not here to talk about myself tonight. Anything I accomplished on the soccer field was set against a backdrop that was far greater than any one player or team. Let me take you back to 1985, when the guys were wearing denim jackets and the girls were dressing like Madonna. I was the captain of the boys' soccer team at my high school. Soccer stars Brandi Chastain and Michelle Akers weren't even a glimmer in my mind. Oh, there we go. I grew up on the East Coast playing against my two brothers. And to say that my backyard was as tough a proving ground as any in the country would be an understatement. One brother, Mark, went on to start for the Duke National Championship soccer team, and Mike, my other brother, with an equally impressive playing career today, is the head soccer coach at top 10 ranked Clemson University. Go Tigers. I dreamed of playing college soccer, and for the first time, a generation of women like me could factor athletics into their choice of school. And the reason that happened was a law passed in 1972 called Title IX. For those not familiar with what that means, absolutely. For those not familiar with what that means, simply stated, all schools around the country would be required to allocate equal funds to men's and women's athletics. It's one thing for an organization to say there will be parity. It's another to actually have to write the checks to do so. This was not just a turning point on campuses. To say that it is no exaggeration to say that it rocked our society. So now, it's 1986. Oh my God. And we ended our freshman season 7-10-1. And trust me, we were not exactly a force to be reckoned with. But we knew we had the talent, but also knew that we had some battles to fight, both on and off the field. How would we ever improve without the tools and resources of any other varsity sport? We all know change is hard and slow, even with the best of intentions. So we asked, and some might say, and not the most ladylike of manners, demanded that the college dismiss the inherited soccer coach, who was a club coach, and hire someone who was qualified. We were so fortunate at such a critical point in our program to get Bruce. Now, Terry, you might want to put some earmuffs on this part, right? The next year, my sophomore year, after coming back early to train, we were displaced and relegated to play on Parents Field. We were not happy. In response, the whole entire soccer team protested, not just the athletic department, but all three colleges, for equal playing conditions, and settled for nothing less than being back on Pritzlaff Field. Everyone likes stats. Well, listen to these. Since Title IX took effect, there has been a greater than 600% increase in women participating in college athletics. More importantly, there's been a 300% increase in college enrollment and a 400% increase in advanced degrees for women in college. That's awesome. While my story is about a woman playing a sport for, in my case, a women's college, I would be remiss not to acknowledge the support that many of the Stags gave us. I know. When the men's football, water polo, basketball teams saw how hard we were hitting, how fast we were running, and the things that we could do with our feet that frankly they could never do. We earned their respect fast. And that's the point. The scoring we did on the soccer pitch wasn't nearly as important as the change in perception we were creating for women on the field of life. So I'm honored tonight to share this recognition with my teammates. I have one teammate here tonight, Lynette Butler, who please stand and be recognized. I know, that's so great. These and many other women are responsible for not only starting our program, but setting the expectation of equality and relentlessly and unapologetically fighting for it. We've gone on to become leaders in our communities, entrepreneurs, and fiercely strong mothers and wives. And I am honored to say some of my closest of friends. Oops, that was our 25th reunion. Can you believe it? We recreated that 2 years ago. This year, Title IX turned 45 years old. I am 49 and 11/12 years old. Oh my God. While so much progress has been made, we have very far to go still today. No matter your personal political beliefs, it is simply not fake news that our nation remains the only one in Western civilization that has not elected a woman president. And ours is a nation seemingly content with there still being a 27% pay gap in the workplace. The list of examples like these is disturbingly long, but I'm sure by now you're a little concerned that this speech will be disturbingly long, so you get the point. I know without a shred of doubt that the lifetime commitment that I have made to fighting for equal rights for women and all started when I was young, but was formed and cemented here at Scripps and on the field as an Athena. Thank you for listening to my story. Before I go, I'd like to thank my friends who traveled here for my big night: Joanna, Heidi, Melissa, Kirk, Dan, Lynette, and my family as well. You are my sisters, my Scripps sisters, so proud. And of course, to my husband, David, who has been my biggest fan. And there's one more group I'd like to recognize tonight: Claire, Hayden, Maddie, Sarah, JC, Rion, Catherine, Kira, Margaret, Katrina, Ren, Ava, Sarah, Emily, Grace, Remy, Artie, Veronica, Lucy, Megan, Noelle, Sydney, Gabrielle, Isabel, and of course, Jen, their coach. These are the members of the CMS 2017 Women's Varsity Soccer Team, who are sitting, some of them, at the table right there. If my story tonight is partially the reason why you got here, then I am confident that yours will be the same for the next generation of CMS athletes, CMS students, and women everywhere. Thank you for the honor again, and good night.
Okay, Diane, thank you for sharing that, for setting the tone that way. And, you know, it's funny, as you were first speaking, I was thinking about how the program I grew up in at Claremont Men's College, and then we went co-ed, and we started the women's program. And I remember being so proud of Dr. Arce at that time, because his mentality was, well, if this, you know, he treated all of our sports as if they were major sports. And I was a swimmer and a water polo player, and you know, sometimes very easy to be overshadowed by some of the other sports there. But I remember him saying, if this is good for our men, why wouldn't we do this for our women? So blithely, I go along thinking, hey, we got it. Yeah, we got this figured out. But I have learned over the last X years that we do have a long way to go. We do a pretty good job And it's through the strength of the personalities of the people that compete for us that help educate us like that. So Diane, thank you again for your good work and for sharing that tonight. So our next presentation will be to a graduate of 2004, class of 2004, Harvey Mudd College, and that'll be Kristina Orosz. Now, Kristina, I got to watch her because she was it was that great springtime, and we have some pretty good athletes running around in the spring, but she was I call her the All-American thrower of all things. And so we're gonna hear from her coach, John Goldhammer, who joined the department back when we were both kids in 1984. And he developed the CMS cross-country and track and field programs, men's and women's, into the juggernaut that they became. They were the dominant program. They have been the dominant programs in SCIAC. And then they have made waves in every event nationally, cross-country and track and field. We're very proud of the legacy of that program, and the strength of that, but the bond of the people that have competed in this program is incredibly strong. Nationally, John's teams have been represented every year with All-America performances at the NCAA Track and Field Championships and the top 10 team performances in cross-country. And we have a cross-country trophy out there, and hopefully we had great performance this morning on our women's side. Maybe we'll see a fresh one coming when they get back from Nationals at Principia in a little bit here. John still competes in Masters competitions, as I say, throwing stuff around. And tonight, he will recognize another of his throwing mentees as the 7th female track and field athlete to join the Hall of Fame. So John, would you please come up and present Kristina?
You know, it's done this a couple times, and I'm very grateful every time I do it. And every time I stand up, I realize most of you don't know what I'm talking about, so I'm just not going to worry about all that technical stuff that we do in track and field, and maybe hopefully give a little bit more information about Christine. But first of all, I'd like to congratulate all Hall of Famers. You guys, that class of a swimmer class, that's pretty special. We've seen that picture for years. I'm getting sick and tired of it. Been working this thing for 35 years. We haven't gotten that national championship. Dez just pops in and just gets one. But congratulations to you guys, and also all the inductees. It's really nice to see you, and unfortunately, I'm getting so old that I remember all you playing. And I remember the protests for the women's soccer teams, and our ADs going crazy and doing fun stuff. But it's really an honor to be here, and again, congratulating all those people that have gone through this program. I'm here to introduce Kristina Orosz. We called her Tina. She didn't like that, but we called her anyway. Now she's Dr. Orosz with a big PhD in chemistry. In my mind, we're honoring one of the very best athletes in track and field. And not so much I was a national championship 10 times, but someone who just did everything, was very, very versatile. And in track, most of the time you do something really well. So like in the Olympics, I've never heard of what's that guy's name that was really fast, the fast Jamaican guy? Bolton. Yeah, Bolton, yeah. So he never ran a 400. He ran 100 and 200. It's just like 20 seconds worth of running. He couldn't throw a javelin. He couldn't do any of that stuff. But he was really, really good at what he did, those two events. We have a tendency here to promote being a good team, which means that athletes in our program do a lot more than just one event. But Kristina came all the way from Ohio to be here, and she was no slouch as a high school athlete. In high school, she played volleyball, basketball, and track. She was a 3-sport team captain and 2-year MVP in all 3 sports. But then she came to Harvey Mudd. And most of us know what happens at Harvey Mudd. Most of the times we just tease those people up there. Unfortunately, now I'm a faculty member there, so I have to be really respectful of my co-faculty members. But when she joined our team, she ran into people like Biff, Toast, Bert, Bird, Rapunzel, Moose, KK, Cheer, Scooter, JP, Woody, Squirrel, and Money. That was the team we had back then. It was a little bit shaky, but there are some pretty interesting things behind those names, and I won't go into those. But during her 4 years at CMS track and field, we dominated the conference at this point and scored 8 out of 8 conference championships, won both for men and for women. And like I said before, Tina was trained as a multiple event thrower, which again is not the norm. So like Dan O'Keefe, who's sitting here, who's a Hall of Famer himself, couldn't throw a javelin for his life. So he threw the hammer, the shot, and the discus, was pretty good at it. Those are big, heavy implements that he has to throw, but the javelin's a little bit different in technique. And I was thinking when I came up here, one thing would be really cool is to sit down and show you some slides like Diane did, which I thought was pretty good. Good job, Dana. And I would show maybe some centrifugal acceleration force vectors, angular momentum, and rotational inertia stuff to get all the motors all hyped up. But I don't think it would mean a lot to you. So what I decided to do was I'm going to give you a little demonstration about what Tina was doing. So Tina's best event, which she was an All-American, was the hammer. Now, I know for a fact that if some of you are thinking, hammer, that's a funny thing to be throwing around. Why would you throw a hammer? Especially a gold hammer. This is not the hammer she threw. She threw this. Now a hammer, this is 4 kilos, it's 4 feet long. If I were to swing it out, and this photographer out here, something's going to have to happen. So I'm not going to swing this one around. But what I will do is I brought a little baby hammer. Little baby hammer. I'm going to show you what it looks like to throw a baby hammer. Is Dave here? Dave, you're not here, right? You won't see it, though. So she's going to start this thing moving, and she's going to take 3 turns. Real simple. Let's go. 1, like I'm pulling the goodness to go. And then really, this little baby hammer. That's the hammer. So 3 turns, going really, really fast, and going 172 feet. That's a long way to throw. She got the discus. You've all seen the discus. Disco with this guy, not a little bit of looking I am, but discus is turned and spun and then released. So there's this longitudinal motion. Discus. Javelin. This is what Dan couldn't throw. Well, javelin is really skinny. It's really, really light, but you have to throw it through a point. So even baseball players are really poor at this because they have a tendency to twist their arm and whack themselves in the back of the head. So you have to learn to throw this in the light. So what ends up happening is you take this really long run. The runway's a little short for me. But Tina would throw that thing over 120 feet, which is quite a long range. Actually, in this room right now, one person was already mentioned, we have a former school record holder in the javelin, the net, Butler, Woodward now. She pulled it right out of the soccer, Bruce could do anything with her, and she got that throw in, she could throw halfway across the soccer field, and in 1 year she set the school record in javelin. The last event Tina had throw was the shot put. The shot put, though, could be thrown by spin. What we do is glide. So here's the glide and the shot put. And she had to throw. Oh, no! Tina. I'm exhausted. So not only was Tina one of the best throwers of all time, and not just for a mutter, because most of us CMCers realize that mutters were kind of not the very good athlete, except for Steve Endemano and a couple other people, but we've had several goes. But Tina was actually, so you'd understand the importance of what she was doing, the impressiveness, in my opinion at least, is that she is the only person, male or female, in the conference history. Now this is 1915 to win all 4 Ooh, not win. Ooh, she won several. To place in all 4 throwing events all 4 years in college. Now, you have to keep in mind, it's pretty impressive, but nobody in high school throws a hammer, and there's only 2 states in the western United States that throw a javelin. So she had to learn those events from scratch, and in the 3 months she threw, her freshman year, she was good enough to place in the top 6 in the conference. Pretty special. Now, that's okay, that's special, right? Okay, so she's a good thrower, so what? Well, in that time, she scored 114 points, championship points in the conference. Now, again, what does that mean? Well, consider that she beat 4 entire teams. Okay, so, and we all know she beat Caltech, right? That's no big deal. But at that point, she also beat Whittier, Kalu, and Redlands University, their whole team, all the points for 4 years. That's pretty special. Both as a junior and a senior, she was voted the team MVP and the HMC Athlete of the Year. Not totally unimpressive, but she was also a conference champion 3 times, an All-American. And even after 13 years after graduation, she's still in the top 5 in our school's history of those throws. So this kind of a process, Terry called her up and introduced her, told her that she was going to be inducted, and I found out about it. I wrote her a little email, said, how you doing? Are you doing okay? What do you think about this? And again, being a mother, she's kind of unique, but she said, and this is a direct quote, and I know it's a direct quote because wouldn't be lying because it was on an email. Yes, it's weird to think of myself as a jock. I figured nerd jock, but now I'm thinking, was I a jock? Like an actual jock? Was I more of a jock than a nerd? Am I not who I think I am? So she had to go through some real soul searching here. But at this point, now she joins, I think, in my opinion, the most exclusive club in CMS history. And I'll tell you why. Here's what happens. There have been 412 Wall of Fame inductees. There have been 128 Hall of Fame inductees. There have been 7 lacrosse coaches, 5 ADs, 4 national championship teams, 3 colleges, but only 2 women in HMC history that have been inducted into the Hall of Fame. So yes, Kristina, you are an actual jock. Tina, you got to come up here now.
All right. There's a lot of people I would love to thank. Most importantly, the team that I played on for all the years I was there. The track teams are huge, so I probably couldn't name everyone, but there were just so many people. And I would also love to thank the coaches during this time, Coach Burkle, Coach Rossi, Coach Beck, and of course, Coach Goldhammer. Coach has personality and seemingly boundless energy. And we all got yelled at a lot. And this isn't bad. This isn't a bad thing. When I was playing, I got picked on for being a runt because in throwing, I'm kind of a runt. And my small arms, and occasionally for running, which is not a thing you're supposed to do when you're a thrower, run. But I figure it all worked out in the end because my senior year, I did end up being an All-American. And going into nationals, I was supposed to place 6th, and I think that's where I placed. I was like, that's good. You know, I did what I was supposed to do, and that was an accomplishment I wanted to achieve. And then all of a sudden, I realized I'm getting grabbed by the scruff of my neck and having my face like rubbed across the grass, and it was Coach. This is right after I became an All-American, and I'm like, this is fine. I'm a mutter. I can deal with awkwardness. And I'm looking up, and all the other competitors are just looking at me, and I'm like, yeah, seems about right. But I figure that was Coach's way of saying good job. But unlike, I think, a lot of mudders, I had a team. And the team led by Coach and the other coaches and all my teammates, and I got to be with them every spring. And a lot of my friends at Mud left, actually. It just wasn't for them. It didn't work out. And I look back and I think maybe the fact that I had the support of a team really was one of the reasons that I did stick it through. And I wonder if my friends had been able to do it if they had had the same support. So actually, I was thinking about President Chodosh's words, because I am incredibly grateful for having been on the team, for having had the support of the team. And now I'm a scientist, and I work in teams all the time. And I think having been on the team in college and in previous years was incredibly important to knowing how to work with people. And now I'm on a nerd team. So although I'm a jock, I have my nerd team, and my nerd team goes by the name of Novel Early Research Development Squad, because we're the nerds. A team of nerds. So my team experience continues into the lab. But I did want to finish up with a quote from another scientist, Neil deGrasse Tyson. It was actually a tweet. But I feel that since that is my Title II scientist, it really struck me. I'm like, no, that's exactly right. And it was just something to think about. And he said, anyone who thinks scientists like agreeing with one another has never attended a scientific conference. So, thank you all. This was a very unexpected thing. And I hope all the teams have the same wonderful experience that I did. Thank you.
I'm thinking of our presentations to our track and field athletes. I thought Biff did a pretty impressive job. I think it was last year or whatever, but Goldhammer, you are special. Tina, you've been special for a long time, John. We've known that. And Kristina, congratulations. It's been my pleasure to watch you grow up here as an athlete and to move from nerd to jock. That's so cool. Yeah, good for you. Yeah. Our next inductee is a young man who, again, this is all about the time when I moved off the pool deck and into the administrative role. So I was getting to know our teams, but I'd always had a special place in my heart for tennis, because I told everybody that had I been a little better tennis player, I'd have never been in the pool. And in high school, I came out and moved out from New York, and I tried out for the tennis team and didn't make it. And I ended up in regular PE, and then they saw I could swim, and next thing you know, I'm a swimmer, and the next thing you know, I'm a water polo player, and tennis was over. It was sad. But I loved hanging out. After swim season was over, I'd hang out at the courts and hang with Coach Krieger and watch the Stags play and do the rest of that. So I've always had a special place in my heart for that group. And I remember JM transferring in and coming and being part of our team in a time that was there was a little bit of turmoil going on at that time, and it was an interesting period there. And so JM comes in, joins, follows in, and falls right into the lineage of the great Stag tennis players we've had. He will be presented tonight by Paul Settles, and since joining our faculty in 2003 and 4, Coach Settles has sustained and elevated the success tradition of Stags tennis. Now, he'll humbly report that he inherited a program that was strong on tradition and talent, and he's proud of the players, what they've done, and he hasn't messed them up since he's come here, right? But he also knows what it feels like to reach the top, as his 2015 team won the national championship. And the Stags are always in the conversation when it comes to Division III tennis and West Coast tennis, and that is because of the talented young men he has attracted to the college. He's mentored them and brought them to CMS during his tenure. So Tonight, Coach Settles will introduce to us the latest Stag tennis player to join the Hall of Fame. Coach Paul?
John Michael Cham-A-Koon. That is just so much fun to say. I just love saying it. I'm going to keep saying it. I first met John Michael when I was recruited to come and look at the head coaching position left vacant by Coach Morgan. And John Michael happened to be on the search committee, and he also happened to be coaching the team by himself. So by the time I got out here to interview, John Michael had more college coaching experience than I did, since I hadn't coached at any level anywhere. And I'm thankful to John Michael, one, for seeing something in me on the search committee that he thought, hey, maybe this guy can coach, and two, for helping to lead a team in his senior year, my first year, that had 4 freshman players starting in the top 6. Because I would have messed it up for sure. John Michael was the right leader in the right place at the right time. He was passionate about his sport. He was dedicated to sportsmanship. He was humble, soft-spoken, and he cared about the people in his life that surrounded him. So now a few things just about John Michael, but that you're not going to find in your programs. Everything in the program has something about the incredible, not so modest accomplishments that he achieved while he was here at CMS. I'm going to tell you some other stuff. So the story starts at Pepperdine University. John Michael was a freshman at Pepperdine trying to walk on to a top 20 nationally ranked Division I team full of scholarship athletes. And he knocks on the door of the head coach, Peter Smith, now at USC, and he says, I want to play in this team. And Peter says, fine, I'll give you a tryout. You got to play me. Peter was late 30s and could beat just about every one of his scholarship athletes on his team. He was that good. John Michael went out, I'm sure expecting not to compete as well as he could have. Peter expecting to beat John Michael easily. John Michael took him to 7-5, I believe. And as soon as the set was done, Peter said, you're on the team. So John Michael, as a freshman at Pepperdine, non-scholarship guy, earns the number 3 spot in doubles, goes on to play for a top 15 team in the country, and does extraordinary things. Great stories. But the story doesn't end there. He wants more, right? He wants more from his academic experience. He wants more from the student-athlete experience. His coach, Peter Smith, also happened to be bringing in the best recruiting class in the country the next year. So together, they mutually decided, let's find something and an environment that you can flourish in, and that was CMC. Peter Smith called Coach Mike Morgan, and a year later, a future Hall of Fame career was born here at CMC. At CMC, JM was simply a Renaissance man and a Renaissance player, right? He knew absolutely everybody on campus. He knew every student, he knew every faculty, he knew every coach, he knew every ground staff member, he knew every worker at Collins. He came to this place a couple times a week. He was well-read. He was the whole package. He was the Renaissance guy. He was also the complete athlete. And whenever Coach Burton or Coach Clark needed a team to scrimmage Athena's basketball or soccer, they called JM and said, get us a band of brothers, bring them out, and let's play against them. So JM did that, and he could do everything pretty well. Now, as a tennis player, as you'll see here, he had the complete all-court game. He was definitely a throwback. He had this silky smooth slice backhand. He had technically perfect volleys. He took the return of serve early and then pounded it at your feet. He did everything. And he had the he had the complete game. And what I like to say is that JM had a 70s game style with an 80s haircut using 21st century equipment. So, and the amazing thing about these photos is these are photos from a couple years ago. They don't look a lot different than his playing days either. So anyhow, when I got here, JM was already an accomplished doubles player. He'd won an NCAA title in his first couple years. And I have to say he was the best doubles player I ever coached, and quite possibly the best doubles player I ever played with as well. So, and to reward him when I got here and kind of flex my muscles as a new coach, I decided to pair him with the one player on our team that had the most mediocre double skills and the worst doubles IQ in the history of college tennis, Kyle Ellison. And I can say that because Kyle's not here and Kyle knows it's true, all right? But God bless JM. He put Kyle on his back, and that team was the best in SCIAC, #1 in the West, won the Ojai doubles title, and got all the way to the semifinals at NCAA's at Bates, which was just an extraordinary accomplishment. Now, at Bates, JM's a senior, and for a graduation present, I had this idea that I'd buy him a ticket to Jacksonville. Why? Not just to be a cool coach, but because I now wanted him to carry me on his back so that we could play a low-level pro tournament in Jacksonville. So we went straight from Maine to Jacksonville. We played this low-level tournament. A bunch of 20-something kids are trying to break on the tour, hungry, and he's playing with a guy 20 years his senior. And he gets us all the way to the semis on his back, and we present JM with his first prize money check, the launching of a very short pro career, but nevertheless. So, and I would say today, if JM were playing for our team, he'd be playing #1 doubles. 13 years after graduation, he'd definitely be playing #1 doubles for us. Some have said that a great doubles player requires a degree of selflessness, a healthy dose of humility, and JM definitely had that. As a first-year coach, I marveled at the way that he invested in his teammates. And we had 2 mutters on that team, Chris Jaswa and Carl Yerger, who were marvelous members of our team that JM really invested in, and I appreciated that. And when JM arrived at CMC and CMS, one of the first players to hit with JM was Carl, who I think was the last player on our roster, now a math professor at Davidson. And Carl, after hitting with him for about 15 minutes, uttered a now famous quote, and he said, yeah, JM was pretty good, but he needs a lot of work on his serve. In classic understated Carl speak. Did I say JM was humble? Yeah, about the most self-effacing guy I think I've come across. To illustrate that, his senior year, he had been playing #1 on a team that was doing very well, and he boasted a very pedestrian 3 wins and 4 losses record at #1 singles in conference, and he pleaded with me not to vote for him for all SCIAC. And I said, you're too good. You know, you're one of the best players in the conference, but he pleaded with me. And that's sort of the humility that JM had. Now, of course, he went on to get to the NCAA final just about 3 weeks after that conversation, so he proved it. Humble, but also incredibly hardworking. We used to do a thing when I was a little more insane as a young coach. We'd go up to the Wilderness Trail 5-mile loop, and we'd run that, about every 2 weeks, it seemed like. Now, if we do it twice a year, we've done it a lot. But JM was first off the mountain, always, big smile on his face, seemed to want more. And then preparing for NCAAs that year, he got on the mountain bike, and he would go up in the fortnight leading up to NCAAs, and he would ride the loop twice. He'd do 10 miles on that Wilderness Trail, in addition to his encore training, and I'm certain that had something to do with his success as a senior. So last thing before I turn it over to the man. When I think of JM, I really think of the profound impact that his parents had on him. And Bonnie and Winston Cham-A-Koon were two very humble, dedicated servants from Great Falls, Montana, who ran their own tennis center, invested in the community, and just loved tennis. And JM made up his mind pretty much around senior year in college that he was going to follow in their footsteps. And it's been just amazing to watch that process. And after graduating from CMC, JM joined our staff, actually helped the Stags team as an assistant coach. The Athenas, he actually took over while Coach Retzloff was on maternity leave for 3 or 4 months by himself and did a magnificent job. Today, he runs a very successful junior program in Newport Beach and again continues to invest in tennis. I think one of the most rewarding things for a coach is to see his own players take their passion and pass it on to others. And JM has done just that. He's effectively created a coaching legacy. As one of Stags Tennis finest of all time, we celebrate that JM has achieved so much here at CMS. We celebrate what he became at CMC, a humble, driven, wonderful mentor and friend and teammate. And we also celebrate what he continues to do with his sport today. So it gives me incredible pleasure to introduce our newest inductee into the CMS Hall of Fame, and this is really fun to say, Michael Cham-A-Koon.
All right. Well, I did not realize that PowerPoint and props were necessary, so I feel a little underprepared. But thank you very much for the incredibly kind words. Not always two of my weakest points. I don't particularly like compliments, so kind of an awkward position. And I don't necessarily like speaking. But I should have paid a lot more attention in that speech class. But, yeah, sorry. There's so many people I would like to thank, but kind of just first, again, kind of just coming to a new home, Mike Morgan, not sure where you are, but just coming from a difficult place, kind of transitioning over and finding someone who just is capable of creating such confidence in you without really doing a whole lot. I came and I met him, he gave a tour, and instantly just that relationship made me want to come and really created just an amazing connection. His wife's okay too. And then obviously once you come, you can't be part of Stags tennis without knowing Hank Krieger. Just, don't have long enough to talk about Hank. What a great man. And obviously getting to meet Paul, who continues to inspire me all the time, just in all sorts of ways. And of course, I thank all my teammates that showed up later in different ways. But would like to, I'd say, just again, the kind of seeing all the people and the great accomplishments and the teams that they were part of, that support really makes all the tough times that you think about much easier. I definitely learned a lot from dealing with my teammates. Probably the most applicable point is now that I have a 9-month-old. It's surprising how much my teammates are exactly like her. dealing with their crying, a lot of crying. We won't go into the dirty diapers, and the things you hope to accomplish, and that sometimes you don't quite reach where you want, but they're always there for you all the time. It really is kind of a fun family that Claremont has created, not just not the team that I got to play with, but the coaches, the coaching staff. It's amazing when you come out and they're, willing to have you come out and challenge the girls' soccer team, even though you're terrible at soccer. We won't start on the basketball game. That's really bad. But sorry, you got me with the reference to my parents. That really means a lot to me. My dad, I was fortunate to have my dad who instilled a great work ethic and the idea that you can always better yourself. And I think that I was just so fortunate to find continually along my journey those people that could reinforce that for me. And surprisingly, they all seem to be at Claremont McKenna. So it was just a really fun place to be. Yeah, I'm sorry, but that I had a little bit more, but I think that just again like to thank my coaches all the time, and thank you. Sorry, that's it. Thank you very much.
JM, welcome back, Ed. It's great to have you here, and to refresh all those great memories that we had from that time. It's an interesting time when we start thinking about that 13 years ago. Holy cow! That's what that messes with my mind a little bit as we're going through here, and now to reflect back on Diane's comments and that, because part of the reason I was really prepped to be here tonight was for this next presentation. So our next inductee is a person who was a foundational player on a program that we elevated from club to varsity as we were growing our program here. This was really fun. It was a fun conversation to have. I actually had the chance to visit with Lea 2 falls ago when we went back for a football game at Washington and Lee, and got to see her in her neighborhood back in DC as we were there. And so, of course, that opened a whole series of memories, and I already knew at that point she was in the queue here to come together. But when I started thinking about how do I present Lea, and how do I do justice to her when she asked me to present her, part of it was the person who she was so close with in her early part of her year, Dan Guthrie, biology professor, member of the Joint Science Department here. He's getting up there in his age, and I had a chat with him about Lea, but I knew Lea because I was in transition myself. I was moving from coaching into administration, and it's kind of crazy. I get to say this back before the turn of the century. The senior members of our department, we were evaluating what's the next addition to our women's athletic program. It had been nearly 10 years since we added women's water polo. It was time. We had opportunity here. And lacrosse made a lot of sense because of the quality of the program we had, the number of CMS women, particularly Scripps and CMC women that we had in that program. We thought, we got an opportunity here. This could be good. Well, that was music to the ears of some of our women, including Lea, who is sitting here right now. She helped us, and the process was on. We had to figure it out. What's this going to cost? Can we do it? We're going to have to travel. We're going to have, what are all the ins and outs? Can we split the 5 college club team and actually still have enough CMS women to be an effective team? What will, how will that go? And so that was a process that I got to sit in on with Dave Wells and Jody Burton, our athletic director and senior women administrator at that time. And then as it turns out, I transitioned into the role of the director during the time of the decision and moving process here. So in Lea's first 3 years, she was a very talented team member of our club team, but she was in our ear, and she was a very strong advocate for Athena's lacrosse. And let's develop a varsity team here. And there was urgency because she could see that her time in Claremont was passing quickly. I mentioned Dan. He was, he was the conduit, the constancy that came through this club program for 20 plus years as we go. He was not a great lacrosse mind, I don't think, but he still had a very strong voice, and he was always there to help support our team as we were going on. Dan mentions that one of the most fun things he did away from joint science was working with the women's lacrosse team, and that Lea was just one of the very best that he had the opportunity to work with. The decision was made. We're moving to varsity. Here we go. And now when? How do we do this here? So during her junior year, we decided it's done. We split the teams. We went CMS, Pomona Pitzer, and we brought in a young woman who was a 3-sport varsity athlete from Swarthmore. She was an All-American and on her way to being a Woman of the Year in the NCAA. And we were trying hard to remember her name, Kristina English. Kristina English came to us, and she showed our Athenas then. At that point, she was the leader of that program. She was on her way to, she's taken a gap year before she went off and worked on her PhD in psychobiology, I think, and at that time. Granola, as Goldhammer called her right away, stuck. She was perfect for this time here, and she came through. And she helped because she understood what it took to be a varsity athlete, 3-sport varsity athlete nonetheless, at Swarthmore with the scholar deal here. And she understood that commitment. What does it take to be successful? And she brought that to our team. One of my favorite memories, and we've talked about this, I talked about this with some of our players too, was that final game as a club team. We played UCLA in the club championship at our place here, and it was a remarkable game. We didn't win, but it was so cool to think that we could be on the field, we could be playing like this, and we're going to be varsity next year. We're on our way. Lea was an outstanding player through all those years. We didn't keep great statistics on the club program, but she was a leader on that very successful team all the way through. Our first lacrosse coach for the Athenas was Dana Latona. She was a 3-time All-American, College of New Jersey, a Division III Player of the Year, and the rest of that. She came in the fall of 2003. So here we are. And it's not unlike JM's experience a little bit. With 3 coaches in 3 years, the team really needed strong and wise internal leadership there. Her junior and senior years were closing in. We were closing in on our first varsity game. She and co-captain Jessie Hooten did a masterful job of leading our team. As intense as Lea was about competing, she had the maturity and the emotional intelligence and empathy to really understand the developmental aspect of the team while we're preparing to win our matches. One teammate mentioned that we were a bunch of rookies with very limited experience. And both Jessie and teammate Brandy Richardson made the same comment about Lea separately. She exhibited a great balance between driving us to be a real team, but staying fun. In her senior year in CMS first varsity lacrosse season, Lea led the team in scoring with 24 goals. She earned all West Region honors, while the inaugural Athenas recorded a 10-3 record. We had a fabulous day. One of my favorite memories as a young AD was a day out on Parents Field playing Bates College in our very first varsity lacrosse game out there. It was a beautiful afternoon. Unfortunately, they got us that day at the end. I think we lost in overtime on that one. But I just remember, okay, we're in the mix now. We're in the game. We are competing. We got a varsity program. We accomplished that goal. And I know for Lea and for the other women who were really driving that transition, that was a huge milestone event and led to the team that we have today. And we have become a player in Division III. And I thank Lea, and I want to welcome her up here to receive her Hall of Fame induction as the first CMS Athena lacrosse player in the Hall.
Thank you, Mike, for your kind and flattering introduction. Thank you to the CMS Hall of Fame Committee, to my alma mater, CMC, to the Athenaeum for hosting us, and to my family and friends for joining us here tonight. While I knew I was at a special place, I didn't appreciate then as I do now what a privilege it was to study here at CMC, to have been able to devote time and energy while a student to extracurriculars, and specifically to have been part of the women's lacrosse program. So it is with humility and gratitude that I accept this recognition this evening. And in receiving it, I will briefly share with you what made this possible and what it means for me now. So women's lacrosse existed here before we became an NCAA Division III team in 2002, the 7th west of the Mississippi River. For any new venture, there must be a visionary, a champion of an idea to put themselves out there to make it happen. For Claremont Women's Lacrosse, those were 2 female CMC students who, in 1985, wanted to start a team. This was just 6 years after CMC began accepting women and 4 years after CMC became Claremont McKenna College. Those pioneers approached Dr. Dan Guthrie, a joint science biology professor who played with the men's club team at the time, and recruited him to serve as a coach to a team they would build. Dan spent the next 15 plus years dedicating countless hours and significant personal funds to support this fledgling team, enabling scores of women to learn and play lacrosse. Dan, now retired and unfortunately unable to join us tonight, recounted this to me recently as I prepared these remarks. He couldn't remember their names, but was delighted to reflect on how much has changed over the years for women's lacrosse. So I also want to take a moment to thank the women of the 70s and 80s on whose shoulders I stand to be able to do this here today, and for the many, many women who are going to be doing this forward. Thank you. So in August of 1999, 14 years after those women got this started, I arrived at CMC as a first-year student, and I met Jessie Hooten. Jessie from Seattle and I from New Jersey met during orientation and immediately bonded over our love for lacrosse. She knew someone from her high school at Pitzer who had played on a 5 women's club team, so we went to that first practice together to check it out. I remember that first practice well, where we were welcomed by Dan and by an intimidatingly impressive group of senior class women from across the 5 colleges. Our team was good, really good, especially considering how scrappy we were and that most had not played the game before college. We were wearing uniforms bought by Jill Stark, former First Lady of CMC, many years earlier. But we could hold our own among schools like UCLA, Berkeley, Davis, and Stanford, each with student bodies and budgets multiples of ours. But despite our success, something was missing. We were just a club team, which meant we lacked the resources and support of an NCAA team. And on top of that, our hard-fought wins just didn't feel quite as sweet because technically we were a recreational group. Now that we achieved NCAA status was likely inevitable, but nonetheless, it would have happened later than it did if there hadn't been a few favorable enabling conditions in place when we arrived on the scene. A strong team, a growing sport, the need to fulfill the requirements of Title IX to ensure equal opportunity to women and men, and importantly, the will of leadership. So compare with the advocacy work I have done since, it was easy to speak up and make our case, but the approval was ultimately someone else's decision. I'm grateful for that, and I'm so proud of what this team has become. I want to spend a moment recognizing Jessie Hooten. She's now one of my closest friends, but Jessie was also my partner on the field. Her prowess on defense was every bit as causal for why we have this team now and why my record was as strong as it was. See, I received recognition because I had great stats, and I'm proud that my scores reflect a high number of assists because my job as a midfielder was to support my team to win and move the ball to where it needed to be. If I'm in the position to score, I must do that, but I also must tee up others to take shots because our collective win is what matters, not any one of our personal numbers. So though such a measurement system may not adequately capture the important role of a top-tier defender, in accepting this honor tonight, I do so with others in mind and in heart, like Jessie, Dan Guthrie, my team, and those unnamed pioneers from more than 30 years ago. My husband, daughter, and I now live in Washington, D.C., and in the years since leaving Claremont, he and I have lived in a lot of different places, familiarizing ourselves with a lot of different people and ways of life, from Singapore to Shanghai to Chicago to Sacramento to Kansas City. settings that each look, sound, feel, taste different, each in their own rich and unique way, but each share much in common. In my work now, I seek to ensure that political and policy conditions are set to apply what works and foster innovation to realize the innate potential of every child. What it will take requires dogged persistence every day to challenge the status quo and seek continuous realignment of incentives for adults to prioritize the interest of those who may lack a voice or a vote. The biggest challenge I face today is that perceptions of our differences unnecessarily prevent us from achieving our full potential as a community, as a state, as a country, and as a world. As a woman of mixed race, I'm primed to know this. CMC and the Women's Lacrosse program here challenged me to put a finer point on that. During my four years here, most of our teams had never picked up a stick before college, yet my teammates from all over the country showed up, ran sprints, threw and caught until we were all in better shape than we had ever been in. As co-captain with Jessie, our first year as a varsity squad, I had to learn how to lead others who think and act under pressure differently than I do, focusing on our commonalities and our shared objectives. Along the way, I learned to believe in potential because hard work and stars aligning can make amazing things happen. I know now that together we were part of a lasting program, but we also built our own reservoirs of resilience, grit, persistence, joy, and optimism from which we drew strength then and will continue to do as adults and leaders in business, policy, law, and medicine. In closing, here's what I take from this recognition and opportunity to reflect, thanks to this experience. Field a full team. Measure, celebrate wins, and honor all that which matters, but which may get lost in the mix. Be your best self. Don't get cocky, but also don't lose confidence. You've got to take the shot at some point, so execute well when given the chance, and practice helps. Thank you to my parents, who taught me to self-advocate and to both learn and contribute in all I do, whether it's in sports, music, as a parent, and as a citizen. Thank you again for this honor to me, to the unnamed women who got it all started, to Dan who made real their vision, and to my teammates whose prowess on the field and in the classroom made the campaign to formalize a team an easy and smart bet for the Claremont Mud Scripps athletic program. Here is to the past, the current, and future Stag and Athenas, this team and these schools. Thank you.
Such great reflections and good food for thought for all of us as we go through here too. Just one public service announcement. We are recording this event tonight, and so it will be online here in the next week or so. And I think there was some real quality remarks tonight that I hope will be shared and that we can spread the word and have some of the rest of our alumni get a chance to see this as well. There'll be an email coming out letting people know when that happens. But now we're moving toward our final presentation here. And this one's special to me. I wasn't fully prepared to do this initially, but we knew this was going to happen. But Dez Farnady took the Stag Aquatic program from a startup to a blue chip program. In his first 4 years, the team became the best in the SCIAC and a national championship team that attracted student athletes to CMC and to Harvey Mudd. The quality of experience was determined by the environment that he established and the commitment that he promoted to the overall education of his athletes and the push for them to take care of business on both sides of Mills Avenue. Dez was my coach. He encouraged me to attend CMC. He coached me into the job that helped me pay for college, and he wouldn't let me quit water polo when I thought I wasn't good enough to really make a difference. I will always be grateful to Dez, but I only had 2 years with him. So what we were members of his earlier teams who had the full Dez experience have put together and created a tribute video to Dez Farnady. So we'll show this video, and then after which Chip Hardinge, who you met earlier this evening, Hall of Famer, All-American swimmer, water polo player, captain of the '67 National Championship team, will share a few reflections. We'll close the evening. Thank you. Dez Farnady established stag water polo swimming and diving as major sports in an athletic program that desired to promote the integration of the athletic experience as an important and valuable component of the education for CMC and Harvey Mudd students. By coaching and teaching, recruiting and developing talent, the pool became another classroom for Claremont Harvey Mudd student athletes. The successes of early stag teams were a byproduct of the expectations and synergy created between coach, athlete, and team. The teams Dez developed put Claremont on the aquatic map and set the table for teams to follow. His leadership, coaching, and teaching set a high bar as the standard for future swim and water polo coaches. We can look back at the records and statistics and appreciate the successes on the scoreboard, but the voices and comments of the athletes from his team speak best to the depth of impact of Coach Dez Farnady.
Dez Farnady was a coach in the real sense of the word. It didn't start out that way because Dez went to the Claremont graduate school to become an artist. He was a sculptor. His grandfather was a famous sculptor in Hungary, and Dez wanted to pursue that path. He took the coaching job to make some pocket money along the way, but suddenly the switch came, and the coaching became a lifestyle, and sculpting became a hobby. I asked him why a few months ago, and he said, well, I wanted to give you guys something that I never got and something I missed when I was your age. And I just kept doing it and kept doing it. And he's still doing it. When I met him for dinner a few months ago in Los Gatos, I picked him up at the local high school where he was coaching high jumpers.
In my mind, you've been in the Hall of Fame for each of us since we started swimming for you. But this official induction is well earned many times over.
He immediately impressed me as a no-nonsense type of guy that takes charge, does whatever it takes, and is definitely dedicated to getting the job done.
Thank you, Dez, for encouraging me to come to CMC, for helping me grow up and persist when I was ready to back away from a challenge. Your advice, kicks in the backside, and support enabled me to maximize my college athletic experience and served as a great model for me when I became a coach.
You took the team from nowhere to national champions in 2 years. I remember your enthusiasm and confidence. You exuded that devilish glee when you announced the day's workout. We responded with groans and laughing disbelief. But we did it, and we did it every time. If you said we could do it, we could. That led to unbelievable improvements by all of us at every level.
When I was struggling through my sophomore year academically and in swimming, he invited me down to his house for breakfast one morning. And he said, Scott, I want to tell you, I think you're coming in the right direction, but you missed the point. It's not about being ahead after halfway, it's about being ahead at the end of the race. And I'd like you to start practicing in practice, getting ahead at the end. And same meets, I want you to be ahead at the end. Well, that put a lot of pieces of the jigsaw puzzle in place for me. It wasn't just swimming, it was a lot of other things. And there were a number of other things I could say I can refer to Dez as a coach along the way. But I think that all of us who had Dez as a coach had at some point had him decode some of the complexity we thought we were facing and tweak the critical variable that made the difference for us. And as we move through life, we've been able to go back to it, and sort of deep down in the recesses of our own potential and uncertainties and find what's necessary and put it together and deliver it when it counted. And we've got a lot of this from Dez as a coach.
I'm just grateful to be part of the people that he influenced, and I humbly and gratefully just want to respect his place in my life.
The people you brought to CMC have been my lifelong friends, and we are grateful that we had the push and the opportunity for the aquatic successes we enjoyed under you. We are proud to have been part of the lineage and helped develop the legacy of the Stag Aquatic program. My teammates were and are terrific people, talented athletes, and dear friends. So thank you for bringing us together and providing the environment that helped to formulate our bond.
Among the things that that you taught me, I learned to try entirely new things, like competitive swimming, get proficient at them, and take new paths with confidence. With discipline and enthusiasm, you can accomplish anything and open doors to entirely new worlds. You personified the teacher, the professor, the mentor, the leader who got the best out of everyone. Not just the top, but everyone. And I know for me, it changed the course of my life for the good.
It's not enough to be able to develop individuals to be a coach. You've got to be able to develop the framework that these individuals are working in. You have to be able to develop the program. You have to develop the institution, or the little institution within the big institution. And Dez struck a great balance between developing individuals and develop the institution. And one of the reasons we're here today is because he helped build the foundation of the future, instead of the corner of a foundation that all of us have been building on since. Dez was no diplomat, and that's one of the reasons he's not here to celebrate his own induction. But nevertheless, I would like to say congratulations to Dez for his induction into the CMS Hall of Fame, and I'd like to say congratulations to the rest of us for acknowledging the accomplishments he made and the role he played.
Coach, I know it's not your style, but take these accolades and these congratulations. Bask in these extra moments of fame. You deserve it for a job well done.
Congratulations, Dez, and thank you.
Thank you, and best of luck to you, Dez.
Dez was a coach in the real sense of the word.
So thanks, Coach.
Now please welcome Chip Hardinge. Have a couple of reflections on his coach.
Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry he could not travel both. He looked down one as far as he could. And what was it he saw that at the end of that road? Claremont? Really? And so it goes, the story says, there came a big, strong, strapping Hungarian lad named Dez. And though the road was less traveled by, for the next few years they flew by, and came a motley crew, short and tall, thin and stout, simple and sly. But all that group, there was not one fool, and still they followed Dez right to the pool. And there they swam, up and back and forth, east to west, and south to north. But I digress. So let's leave Robert Frost behind for a moment, as if I hadn't already left him behind. It has been a privilege for a group of us in this room tonight to know Dez and to call him a friend for the last 50 years. That's pretty remarkable. We know that he was our coach, but more than that, he was our friend, and we shared a dream with him. That dream began in March of 1966, when 6 of us and Dez went back to Conway, Arkansas, and took 6th place at the NAI National Championships with just 6 people. And at that moment, a spark took hold that made us stop and think, could it be possible? We returned to Claremont that spring, and 6 weeks later, almost on automatic pilot, we won the SCIAC League Championship in swimming. All the while wondering, is it possible? And now, at this point, I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment and tell you very candidly that we badly underestimated our coach, Dez Farnady. For on the September of 1965, we came back to school a few days early for water polo practice, and there on the terrace to the right side of the pool was a lovely young blonde siren And she was sunbathing in a bikini. All the guys were looking. Dez waited while he made sure that everyone was fully aware of our new companion up on the terrace, and then he said, "Okay, bozos." All of our heads were still on the terrace. He said, "I got to tell you, that is my wife. Her name is Marcia." 25 heads snapped from the terrace to Dez, and thoughts of travesty, outrage, how could this be? Well, it was to be, but you could hear 25 hearts breaking, and all at once at that moment. Dez was our coach, and he led us, he cajoled us, he mother henned us, and he threatened us as we swam lap after lap. He became a taskmaster and required that every turn be a tumble turn, no more open turns. And thank goodness at that time, swim goggles came into being, and we were saved our eyes from being burned out by the over-chlorinated pools that we seem to run into in institutions like this. And Dez found those goggles for us, but all the while he continued to wonder, would it be possible? Now you don't win a national championship in 3 days at a swimming meet. It takes months of preparation. Takes hundreds of workouts and thousands of laps and thousands of tumble turns and hacking out your lungs. If you think back to the mid and late 1960s, hacking out your lungs to the smog that settled into Claremont in the fall every afternoon. That was not necessarily fun. But while we were hacking out our lungs, we'd always hear this consistent voice saying 1 minute and 10 seconds, 1:11, 1:12, 13, 14, 1:15, as he called out the elapsed time as we finished another set of repeat swims. But we also heard, "Good job, Robin." "Gary, keep your head up." "Joe, stop complaining and keep swimming." Our team performances were good and they got better. Our times were going faster and faster. And he started to lay the groundwork for the national championships when he said, "Alex, you're going to have to swim the 1650. And right after that, you're going to have to swim one leg of the 800 freestyle relay." That's a pretty good bite to chew off. Joe Bush, "You have to swim the 200 fly." "No, I don't care if you don't want to swim the 200 fly. You're going to swim the 200 fly." And Hardinge, unfortunately, this is a personal note, "You have to swim the 400 IM." And he was thinking in the back of his mind, we're going to need those points. Fast forward to March of 1967, back at Buffalo at the NAI National Championships. The first 2 days went well, but the third day was going to be critical. It took a perfect day. We had long swims, hard swims, and it had to go just our way. On the night before the third day of swimming, we got together in his room and he laid out the map. He showed us what events we were going to swim and who had to do what for us to get there. Well, as you know, we got there. As long as we won the 4x200 freestyle relay at the end of the meet, we would be national championships. And sure enough, we won it. Dez called back to Claremont that evening and got Coach Dean Cliff McLeod on the phone. There was a all-school party and dance going on in McKenna Auditorium, and Dean McLeod went down to the auditorium, got on the microphone, got on the PA system and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to know that the CMC has just won the NAI National Championship," and the crowd really went wild. Well, that brings us to tonight, because Dez had a dream, and he believed in us. He helped us believe in us. He helped Claremont believe in Claremont. We became better men. We became more confident men, and I have to admit, there's a certain amount of confidence and maybe even a little swagger that comes when you know you have a national championship in your back pocket. So that brings us back around to Robert Frost again and the road less traveled by. When first Dez and then each of us on that team looked down that road, far down that road, and saw Claremont? Really? And now, knowing that somewhere, ages and ages hence, because we took that road less traveled by, as it turns out, that made all the difference. For Coach Dez and for his team of champions that are assembled here tonight, I say thank you very much.
So we've come to that point. I hope you have enjoyed the recollections, the memories, the sentiments, and also the inspiration of the people that have spoken to us tonight. It's fabulous for me, having watched many of you grow up and grow up as student athletes here. It's a real joy to watch you come back and to see just who you've become after you left here. And for the group that I got to see, who were the founders of a program I was a part of and then had the pleasure of trying to follow the lead of a Dez Farnady over that time. So great to be together tonight. I want to wish you all, I'll step aside here and turn it over to Terry Toomey for closing remarks here as we go, but thank you all for indulging me. I think this has been a terrific evening. I congratulate all of our inductees again, and I look forward to seeing you as we get ready to separate here. Congratulations, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We'll be brief here, but I have a couple of thank yous I'd like to convey. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Mike Sutton, who did an amazing job as our MC. You know, a night like this where we honor such wonderful people can't go off just by itself. Our community comes together and does an amazing job, and it's led by a variety of leaders that we have here on our campus. The first I'd like to recognize, of course, is Coach Paul Settles and his class. They do an amazing job in terms of helping us put this together, along with the staff of the Athenaeum and, of course, the incomparable Dot Buchanan, who's in the back there. You can see her waving if you turn around. I tell you, this was an amazing evening, and as a kind of a newcomer here, I've only, you know, a lot of people have been here 20, 30 years. I've only been here 2 years so far. So it's always amazingly flattering, and almost I marvel at the stories that I hear from our honorees. And more importantly, I marvel at what they have led us to be. As I listen to them and I think about what we are scholar, leader, athletes. And as I listen to the stories, whether they are from our women leaders, whether they are from our national championship teams, whether they are from a humble tennis player, I learned that the leader aspect of it truly is what we're all about. So to our honorees, thank you so much. This has been a great celebration, and I hope all of you have a wonderful evening. Thank you.